At 26 years old, I was sitting in a brand new loft apartment that I just built, overlooking the city of Cape Town. I felt like I was truly in my castle, like the king of his castle. And it was my 26th birthday. I sat down in my condo, brand new, fully furnished. I felt like a king because I furnished it in 2 days. I walked into a store and said, I'll take that and that and that. And I had all this money to buy all these things. And I assumed those things would make me feel better, right? They would make me feel like I was successful, that I had achieved something. And it was that evening sitting there, I actually started to cry. I was literally about to have dinner and I realized, man, I still feel like that little boy. I still feel like I'm sitting in the dancer's chair and I have all these things around me, but none of them make me feel good. None of them make me feel smart.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best You podcast. Today, I am super stoked to be joined by the one and only Rudi Riekstins. Rudi, just want to start off by saying thanks so much for spending time with me today, man.
Oh my God, man. I just want to say thank you so much to you for your patience. I know that we have tried to get this on the books so many times and things have come up. Your schedule's busy, my schedule's busy, but we're here doing it today. And I just want to acknowledge you and what you do and the impact that you're making out in the world and giving people like me an opportunity to have a platform to share. And so thank you so much, man. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, man. Well, of course, I appreciate you making the time as well and having the flexibility as well. Super excited to get into a lot of different things today. And I know you're going to provide so much value for everybody listening. And so I just kind of want to dive right into it. I know that your kind of childhood story is a big part of your story, right? A big part of kind of like your growth and transforming into the person that you are today and doing what you do today. And so to kind of give everybody a little bit of context, and you can give more context as you see fit as well. But I know at a very young age, when you were growing up in South Africa, when you were going into essentially like your first day of real school, I think it was first grade when you were about 6 years old, you went and you had an older brother and your teacher recognized you and asked if you were Rudi Riekstins. You're like, yeah. And she was like, oh, okay, I know your brother. And essentially, if you're anything like your brother, then you're going to have to go sit in this chair all year long, because if you're going to be as stupid as your brother, then you're going to be over in this stupid chair, essentially. And so you were told at a young age that you were just this dumb little kid, essentially. And first off, that's just unbelievable that somebody would say that to anybody at any point in their life, let alone when they're 6 years old. I can't even imagine what kind of stories and what kind of narratives that had you playing in your own mind. And kind of as I briefly mentioned before we hopped on, I think that so much of making a positive change in our life has to do with changing our identity or changing your self-identity. And oftentimes that comes from the things that we tell ourselves about ourselves. And so I kind of want you to give more context if you feel like is needed, and then talk about how you have over the years rewritten the narrative and rewritten that story that was programmed into your head at a young age that you were a stupid kid.
Man, I love how you jumped right in there. And that wasn't even essentially what happened. That was exactly what happened. The teacher labeled me in front of 30 other kids and said, if you're anything like your brother, you're going to spend the rest of the year sitting in the dunce's chair. And I'd never heard the word dunce before, and I didn't know what a dunce was. But she put a red hat on my head that looked like a witch's hat, like a pointed hat, and had the word dunce written on it. And then she made me sit in this chair, and the chair was a bar stool, not a school desk. So all these kids were sitting in school desks. They were those single slide-in desks where you sit. And there I was, elevated 1 or 2 feet above everyone else, sitting in the corner. And now it was labeled stupid. And then it created separation between me and everybody else, because not only did I have the red hat, not only was I sitting in a different chair in a different place, I had 30 eyeballs, or kids, sets of eyeballs staring at me with that look of terror. And I'm sure that in my mind, my imagination has made this even more dramatic than it ever possibly was. But that was such a defining moment in my childhood, because, I was then labeled stupid. I remember the thought of thinking, well, that's a teacher. Teachers are here to teach you. They know what stupid looks like. And in that moment, I was just like, right, I'm stupid. And so for the rest of my school career, I never studied. I never tried. I never showed up. I never did homework. I was always the loud kid. I was obnoxious. I was the joker trying to compensate, because I had defined myself as, well, you're never going to be intellectually smart. You're not going to compete with these other kids that are brilliant. Well, you've got to be something else. And so I thought, well, I would be funny, or I'd be charismatic, or I would have a sense of humor. Whatever it was, I wanted to be anything but stupid. And so I overcompensated. I overcompensated with friendships. I overcompensated in the classroom and with sport. Whatever it was that I was doing, I was trying to be something I wasn't. But here's what I want your audience to take away from this conversation, and why I love your question so much, is people listening have just heard that a 6-year-old kid, 6.5 years old, walked into a classroom, was called stupid, and then for the rest of their school career, literally thought they were stupid. And so they never applied themselves ever. I don't even know how I finished high school. I tell this all the time, but I showed up for my final biology exam, which was a 4.5-hour sitting exam, and I didn't even open a book. I mean, they literally sat down thinking it was English literature. And I was thinking, man, I should have read the English literature book. And here I sat down to write the exam, and they put a biology paper in front of me, and I just started laughing because I was like, man, shit, now what? And that was the actual thought that went through my mind. And I did the best I could. And somehow, magically, I passed. Now, I didn't have flying colors. I wasn't given any accolades in school, but somehow that information retained. So there's proof and evidence in that I wasn't stupid. But why I love your question so much is every single person listening to this has that story. Their story is different. It's about something else. And we're going to talk a lot about this, I would imagine, in our episode today. Every moment in life is preparing you for who you're going to get to become. And I believe that every single moment is part of a curriculum that is qualifying you for who you are meant to be next. And I speak about that a tremendous amount in the work that I do. And that moment was clearly a defining moment for me, because I never showed up, never thought I was smart. And I had to go through my own journey, which only started at 26 years old, of realizing, actually, I'm pretty wicked smart. And I remember the thought and the moment, and we can touch on that if you like later, but I wouldn't be serving you and your audience if I didn't bring this back to them and say, what was the moment that happened to you when you were 4 or 5 or 6? Did your parents say children should be seen and not heard? Cowboys don't cry. Money doesn't grow on trees. Money is the root of all evil. What were those things that were implanted? Because the work I do today that has so beautifully prepared me is to understand how the brain's formed. And under the age of 7, the human brain doesn't have the ability to process rational or logical thought. We've all heard this. But what does that actually mean put into practice? So at 6.5 years old, walking into a school gymnasium into a school classroom and being labeled stupid, I just accepted that as a fact. And that became how I identified. And that's how I then showed up until one day I broke the pattern. So what were the things that you've all heard? What are the things that we've adopted and how we show up today? Because all of those rules in how you govern your life, unless you do the very specific work that I do, you are 95% pre-programmed based on information you retained before the age of 7. 95% of how you respond to things, how you show up, what you do, the actions you take, are all based on a program that was given to you prior to the age of 7. And so you're just responding to life. A lot of the work I do is helping people change who they are so that they can become who they want to be, right? Because we all have a goal or a vision, but we're not going to be able to do that if we don't first stop and say, hang on, what are the things I think about myself? What are the thoughts? What are the ways of being? And then we're going to be able to create that shift or that change in ourselves. And so that's really important, is to first look at what happened, what came up in your life, and why do you think the way that you think, or why do you do things the way that you do them? And if you could, which you can, what would you want to do differently?
Right. Yeah. So I love this topic so much. So I have told you, I run a 10-week transformation program where people are working on their health and fitness goals and looking to change their habits. And largely people have stories and narratives that they've told themselves about their own health and about their own habits. Like, oh, I've just always been somebody who has a sweet tooth, or I've always been somebody who is overweight. I've always not really been able to, never been a runner. I've always never been this, or I've always never been able to do that. And so I kind of want you to give a little bit of your story and kind of overlap it in the sense of, you lived out this narrative all the way through high school. Like, it took you a while to break this programming. So what are some things that you did to start breaking that program / what can people do to start breaking their own narratives and start transforming that?
From the age of 6 till the age of 26 is how long I identified as somebody that wasn't smart. I wasn't book smart. And I used to call myself stupid. And, you know, I even have a memory that comes up of me doing something. I love to work with my hands and projects. And I remember making a mistake and saying, "Oh, you're so stupid." Yes, stupid. And I was calling myself the word, like I associated Rudi stupid. No one looking at me from the outside in would ever have said 20-year-old or 22-year-old or 23-year-old Rudi would call himself stupid. But that was what was going on in my head at all times. And you only had to look at my relationships. You had to look at my friendships. You had to look at every other area of my life, including my health and my well-being, to see that, you know, there was a narrative going on in my head where I didn't feel like I was worthy. I was 26 years old when I realized that I had to start taking accountability for how I was showing up and to do something different. And so I'm going to answer your question this way. You know, I told you that as a child, I overcompensated by being a clown. When I grew up and I left school at 18, I never went to college because Rudi was stupid. So why waste money in college, right? And so I just went into business. And the same intensity with which I showed up to be a fool or to be a clown or to be a joker, I channeled that into business. And so I created 3 businesses, 3 startup companies. I was a self-made millionaire. At 26 years old, I was sitting in a brand new loft apartment that I just built, overlooking the city of Cape Town. I felt like I was truly in my castle, like the king of his castle. And it was my 26th birthday. I sat down in my condo, brand new, fully furnished. I felt like a king because I furnished it in 2 days. I walked into a store and said, "I'll take that and that and that." And I had all this money to buy all these things. And I assumed those things would make me feel better, right? They would make me feel like I was successful, that I had achieved something. And it was that evening sitting there, I actually started to cry. I was literally about to have dinner and I realized, man, I still feel like that little boy. I still feel like I'm sitting in the dancer's chair and I have all these things around me, but none of them make me feel good. None of them make me feel smart. My girlfriend at the time was cheating on me. You know, my best friend stole 30 grand from me. I had another friend who took $15,000 and disappeared. And so there was these relationships, and the way I allowed people to manipulate me or take advantage of me was all saying Rudi doesn't believe in himself or Rudi isn't worthy. Yet I'd created these businesses. I'd created this, what we could call a level of wealth, right? I don't know what wealth is for a 25 or 26-year-old, but to me, that's what it was. And I realized that I was so deeply unhappy and unfulfilled. But it was such a beautiful moment because that night I pushed my dinner aside and I took out a legal pad and I wrote down all the things that I had ever done or achieved in my life that I thought I was worthy of, or that I had done successfully, or that I was in fact smart. And so I wrote out a list of all the things that I had done that I could turn around and be proud of myself for. And in the beginning, it was 4 or 5 things. Then it went to 10. And then by the end of the evening, I had filled 2 sides of a legal pad of evidence, you know, things that would say I started 3 companies. I have successful companies. You know, I have 40 or 50 or 60 people working for me. And look at the money I have and look at this and look what I've done for my family. And I started building all of these things. I even remember adding onto that list that I finished high school without studying somehow, miraculously. And so I have to be smart. And that was the last line I wrote. I have to be smart. There's no way I could not be if all of this had happened. And that was the turning point. And so I started writing out that list every single day. And it's really interesting because a lot of the work that I do today is impacting high performers. I'm a leadership visionary, if you wanted to ask me what is a title. But essentially, I'm a high performance coach. I go into either a person's life, a relationship, or a business. Most often it's business. But I'll go in and help and support either the leader or the entire organization to achieve its highest and greatest potential and up-level every single person within the company or within the business or within the leader or within the relationship to achieve the greatest levels of growth that they can. And that exercise actually comes into the majority of the work that I do because most people are still thinking, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. I read a statistic recently that 95% or 94% of CEOs in America, they have imposter syndrome. They walk into work thinking one day people are going to realize I'm not qualified. And they're running the biggest companies in the world. And that's fascinating. But if we were to look at what evidence actually reinforces, you know, that we are good enough, that we are worthy, and we start to change that narrative, it wasn't the beginning and the end of everything, but it was absolutely the beginning of the journey. It opened the doorway to more possibilities. I'm going to say something a number of times today. When you ask more empowered questions, you're going to get new information. And if you're looking at the same information every single day, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, and you're not asking a question like, hang on a minute, am I really stupid? And then you start saying, well, no, I'm not, because I've done this or I've done that. New information comes in and it changes the entire course of, the discussion that's going to move forward. And you're going to make different decisions about your life as you go forward. And so, I could tell you step by step what my life looked like and how it changed, but I'd rather just tell you where you are right now, what's working, what's not working. There is a different form of information because you're looking at one set of information. And if you were to ask a different question, you would be looking at different information within the same context. And then you keep expanding that, you're going to start making very different decisions.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love that exercise. And it obviously worked well for you and for so many people that you work with. And it's such a belief of mine that so much of your identity comes from who you tell yourself you are. And so if you just continue to tell yourself, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, then you'll just continue to kind of live in that identity. And the only way to kind of shift that is to change the way that you talk about yourself. And one of the ways that you can change that you talk about yourself is look at the evidence of the contrary. Like, I think acknowledging your own achievements, acknowledging your own successes is something that it might, I don't know exactly how it sounds, but people are like, that's not really going to do anything. But it's like, most people don't go back and look at all of the progress that they made. Most people don't go back and look at all the good things that they've done. And if you do that, it's like, oh, wow. Like, I actually have done amazing things and I have done great things. I've actually interviewed a sports agent before, and she said that one of the things that she would do with some of her athletes is when they were not feeling confident is go back and watch a highlight reel of yourself and kind of like put a mental highlight reel of yourself in your brain so you can have that confidence and live in that new identity that you really have. And so I absolutely love that exercise. I want to go into the empowered questions things, because you have an amazing podcast called the Empowered Life Podcast, and that's IN powered. And so I want you to talk a little bit more about what does it look like, or maybe give an example or two of transitioning a poorly worded question to more of an empowered question for ourselves?
That's a great question. And I'm going to give you some more context because I think some additional context is necessary. The human brain picks up anywhere from 1 million to 10 million bits of information, data, every single second. And you're making decisions based on only 50 bits of that data. So we're talking about such a small amount of information out of all of the information that is around you. The 50 bits of data that you're reinforcing is based on what you were thinking and feeling most last. And so if you are at 6 years old, chemically instructed by somebody telling you you're stupid, your brain formulates the thought, I'm stupid. It dumps the chemical into your body of stupid. You feel stupid. Now you look for evidence out of 10 million bits of information. You're looking for information that reinforces what you were last thinking. And that was that you're stupid. So then you're going to look at your test grade and say, oh, I am stupid. Then you're going to trip on the playground outside. And then you're going to be like, yeah, I am stupid. And then, for me, I opened up my lunchbox and I saw what I was eating for lunch and I saw what my friends were eating for lunch. And then I realized I'm poor. Of course I'm poor. I'm stupid. And everything started to reinforce, who I was and how the world was showing up. When you ask a more empowered question, and why my podcast is called Empowered Life, is we have everything within us to be who it is that we came here to be. I believe in a divine power that has perfectly, carefully, calculatedly created everything. And all we need to do is take those steps. There are some things that are required, and we can talk about awareness and we can talk about accountability, which is absolutely going to be a cornerstone of your program. But you need to ask different questions so that you can start to access the 10 million bits of data, not be fixated on the 50 bits of data that reinforce how you used to feel. So an example of that, if I thought I was stupid, and by me only finding evidence to reinforce that I'm stupid, my brain is scanning 10 million bits of data, and then it's filing away everything that does not affect what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for evidence to say I'm stupid. 26 years old, I'm crying. It's my birthday. I realize my life has fallen apart. I thought that money would give me respect. Money would give me power. Money would give me fulfillment and joy. It gave me none of those things. And so everything I'd worked for was nothing. It was worthless to me. I don't mean money was worthless, but it didn't translate the way I thought it would. And I realized, man, I'm still a 6.5-year-old stupid boy sitting in a dunce's chair. My chair just got bigger and the dunce name got bigger, but here I am. And by asking the question, am I really stupid? Is this even true? I started looking for evidence around me of if it is or if it isn't. So I want to give you another example that's going to be a little easier, I think, to translate for your audience. We all remember the day we found out the world was shutting down from COVID. And for me, I can tell you where I was, what I was doing, what I was wearing. I can tell you the temperature of the day because it was so crystal clear in my mind. And at that time, I had just purchased a new home. We had just started renovating the whole first floor of my house. All the walls were missing. The floors were missing. Fireplace was taken down. It was literally unlivable. And then I found out, oh my God, all my clients disappeared in one day. The entire industry shut down. All my money went away. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in income I was expecting to come in. I had just sunk a tremendous amount of my savings into this home because I wasn't expecting the world to shut down. I owned multiple properties, had multiple mortgages, multiple cars. I had a boat. I had all these things I had to pay for, and I had zero money coming in. And so would that create fear? Would that create stress? Right? The answer is yes, absolutely. But in that moment, I remember sitting down, and as I sat down, I looked at my wife and we were like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And so she said to me, we need to put on the news. Now, if you know me, I don't watch the news. I haven't watched the news in, I want to say 12, 14 years. I avoid any news like the plague. I like to bring in information that reinforces that my world is amazing and I don't need the drama. On that day, my wife convinced me, let's put on the news. So we sat there for 20, 30 minutes, learning a little bit about what was going on and, educating ourselves a little more. When I started to see the news was repetitive, I said, okay, I think it's enough now. We turned it off. We know enough. I sat back and I was in panic. I could feel my brain shutting down. I could feel the logic and the reason draining because you need your left and your right brain to communicate to have logic and reason. And I was in a state of stress. I was in a state of panic. And I was just thinking about all the work and the house and what we were doing and how were we going to afford this? And I'm going to lose everything. That was the thought running through my mind. And then I did what I have conditioned myself to do over a number of years. And that was to take a really deep breath in and oxygenate my brain. And then I oxygenated my body. And then I did that for a minute just to allow fresh breath to come in, bring the oxygen to flow through. And then I said, okay, do I like what's happening to me now? No. Okay. No, I don't like it. Okay. Can I change what's happening to me right now? No. No, I cannot change it. If this is somehow serving me, what do I have now that I didn't have an hour ago? What do I have now that I didn't have a few minutes ago? And then I sat with that, and it took me around 30 seconds. And now this was a dialogue that actually happened. It wasn't in my head. My wife and I were doing this back and forth. And it took us about 30 seconds to realize, man, we have time. We have a tremendous amount of time available to us that we didn't have before. And in asking that question, my next question was, what can I do with the time I now have available that I didn't have before? My wife said to me, man, there's all these projects we've wanted to do. We've wanted to host these summits. We've wanted to do these events, but we've just been too busy. And so we started hosting events. Those events brought in more business. Those events helped thousands of people through COVID struggle with mindset. We created an entire mindset reset program. I gave everything away for free. I went into a state of service, and instead of charging, I just gave everything for free. Free speakers came on to speak. We hosted free events. We gave away free resources, and thousands and thousands and thousands of people logged in and their lives changed. But later, all of a sudden, business opportunities came out of that. And that wasn't my intention. And my world changed, and my business changed, and the direction of my life changed. And that moment sitting on that couch became the greatest gift I've ever been given in my business because it catapulted me in the direction of where I'm meant to be going. So here's what I want you to think about. What is that thing that's come into your life where you've looked at it through a lens, through a problem? Because let me tell you, when you lose all your clients, lose your money, and you might be losing your house, you feel like a victim. You feel frustrated, anxious, nervous, stressed. But by asking, how is this serving me? What do I have now that I didn't have before? And landing on, man, I have time. I got to pour 3 months into preparing for this event. I gave my heart, my soul, and everything into it. But man, the love that came out of that, the connections that came out of that, the people's lives that changed, and the letters and the stories and the emails and the phone calls I've had from just what we did over that period in the beginning of COVID. And then we started doing it again and again and again, and we've done multiple of them. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't ask that question. But another thing that I wouldn't be serving you if I didn't anchor into was, how long did Rudi stay in suffering in that period? And the answer there is really, it was less than, 30, 40 minutes, because the initial wave of panic was real. Sitting and watching the news was the most egregious waste of my time. But I sat there and I needed that in that moment to just really understand, holy crap, everything's fallen apart. And then when I shifted into how is this serving me, my brain started looking at opportunity. And then I got into high gear and my life changed. And so that's what you really need to do, is you need to take a really deep breath in. You need to create coherence back in the brain, because when you're stressed, you cannot have a logical thought. So if I run up to you in the middle of the night and I give you a fright and I ask you to come up with logical reason, you're not going to be able to. So you have to restore coherence in the brain. Left and the right brain need to be able to communicate, and then ask an empowered question. And by asking an empowered question, you're going to get 10 million bits of data where you can draw something. And I'm going to tell you now, in any moment like that has happened in my life, in all the moments that happen in the lives of my clients, it's those moments that catapult them to the thing they're looking for. We all have a goal or a vision. And I'm going to tell you now, every one of those moments, that's what gets you to what you want. But you have to be in a place to receive it, understand it, and then be able to process that information.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that example so much, because obviously everybody can relate with that. I think a number of different things I want to touch on really quickly. I love the stat of, we process, I think, like 10 million bits of information. We only have access to maybe 50 or something like that of information. And that just goes to the point of, we don't really experience life. We experience the part of life that we focus on. And whatever you're focusing on is what's going to magnify itself in your brain and your mind. And so it's important to make sure that you're focusing on the right things, because everybody's life is going to be based off of what they focus on. You can find bad things all the time. You can also find good things all the time. It just depends on what you focus on. But I think creating the space, like you said, and asking the right questions are two massively important action steps to take if you find yourself potentially focusing on the wrong thing. It's like, okay, let's breathe. Let's take a few deep breaths, give myself a moment, give myself some space, give myself some mental clarity and coherence. And then let's go through these questions to spark some creativity, to spark some thought that actually there might be some significant opportunities out here in front of you. Like, I loved what do I have now that I didn't have before? And then whatever the answer to that is, what can I do with that I couldn't have done before? And I think that's so key, like acknowledging, and during COVID, you had a lot more time now that you can maybe focus on some other things that you didn't previously have. I absolutely love that exercise. We're going to take a brief pause in this episode to tell you about our brand new, never seen before, best-in-class virtual 10-week transformation experience. You can check it out today by going to nickcarrier.com. Now, look, if you're somebody who needs accountability to execute on a consistent basis with eating healthy and exercise, this virtual 10WT experience is for you. If you're somebody who is upset with themselves when they look at themselves in the mirror, not just physically, but also emotionally and mentally, then the 10-week transformation is for you. If you're somebody who kind of knows what to do, but you struggle to actually do it, the 10-week transformation is for you. If you're somebody who loves community and loves support and loves being held accountable, the 10-week transformation is for you. With the 10WT, we teach people how to form the healthy habits that will transform their body and their life. And now we have a brand new, robust version of the program that can be completed from your home, your gym, or your anywhere. I mean, whether you live in Nashville or San Francisco, Atlanta or New York City, Houston or Denver, LA or Chicago, Sydney, Australia, or Toronto, Canada, you can even complete this thing in your hotel room. Our brand new virtual 10WT experience is like nothing you've ever seen before. We've had 453 people and counting who have skyrocketed their self-confidence by losing fat, building muscle, and building habits that they now have ingrained in their lifestyles by completing the 10WT. And it can do the same for you. Starting August 7th, we're going to be coaching a group of 30 go-getters through their first ever 10WT experience, and you have the opportunity to be one of the first. But there are limited spots available. Like I said, there are 30 spots, and they're going to go fast. So sign up by Tuesday, August 1st to secure your spot by going to nickcarrier.com. Again, by August 1st, go to nickcarrier.com. Again, if you need a greater level of accountability, the 10WT is for you. If you need help staying consistent with your workouts and eating habits, the 10WT is for you. If you want to form healthy habits going into holiday season, the 10WT is for you. Remember, sign up by August 1st to secure your spot. There are only 30 available by going to nickcarrier.com. When you join, I promise you, be prepared to show the world the healthiest, most confident, and best version of you. Go to nickcarrier.com to sign up today. The next thing I want to kind of go into, we're talking a lot about focus, and I think oftentimes what we focus on stems from what our goals are, what our vision is, because we're kind of goal-centered creatures. We see the life through the lens of whatever our goals are, and so it's important to have good goals. It's important to have a good vision, and I know that you're having a book that's called How to Align Your Vision. So I want to talk to you about how do you come up with what are some steps that you take with people that you coach to come up with a vision? And then kind of along the same lines, how long-term of a vision do you usually start off with people? Because I find that a lot of people have different opinions on that and different levels of specificity with the duration of their visions and stuff. So I'm just interested to hear what your kind of take is on creating visions for ourselves.
So I want to answer a number of questions you had hidden in there. And the human brain focuses on the 50 bits of information based on a formula of, is all of the information that I'm seeing, so the 10 million bits of data every second, is it going to cause me pleasure or is it potentially going to cause me pain? And if whatever you're picking up is going to potentially cause you pain, it's going to focus in on that information through the lens of whatever it is you're thinking and feeling about yourself. So if you think you're dumb or you think you're not good enough or you're not worthy and you see 10 million bits of data, it could be you walk into a room and everyone in that room is excited to see you. People smile, they look at you with kindness, with love, with respect, but there's that one person in the room that's shaking their head and judging you. Your brain's going to forget every one of those people. It's going to send you the information of that one person, and you're going to then process that feeling of, look, there it is. There's the evidence. You're not good enough. You're not worthy. And you're going to find that because he could potentially cause you pain. All the other people are under threat, so they're not going to cause me pain. And so to really understand how to create a vision and then to achieve that vision, you need to really have a greater understanding. And I'm not talking the neuroscience, right? But the understanding of how you are the way you are and why you do or don't do what it is that you want. And so I like to teach in a way where we're giving people tangible tools, but we're getting them to apply it to themselves. When you hear something, that's great. Information is invaluable unless you take the information and somehow put it into practice. So I'm going to pose a question to your audience again. Right now, what is the goal or the vision that you have for your life? What is the thing you've always wanted to have, always wanted to do, but you just didn't know how to do it or you didn't think it was possible for you? And you say, oh, I want that, but that's never going to be for me, or that's never going to be something that I could do, or who's ever going to trust me or respect me, or I don't have that kind of luck, whatever that narrative is that's around it. What's the thought that runs through it? And so if you could fixate on that thought for one moment, then ask yourself, what's the thing that's stopping you from always being able to do that thing? Can we build evidence around it to reinforce that it is true? So I can't, in the allotment of time that we have today, give you exercises to identify necessarily that one underlining vision. But what I can give you is a number of steps that you can do to achieve it. So if you were to look at your life right now, I would write out a list of everything that you've ever gone through in your life that has added to the qualification of who you are. That would be me having a gun put to my head. That would be me being molested by my older female cousin. That would be me finding out years later that female cousin was brutally raped and then eventually committed suicide, and all the traumas that have happened in my life. And then all of the good things, all of the bad things, that's telling me a story. That's building evidence. It's building information. And then eventually I get to look back at all of that and identify a pattern. I coach and support people who want to achieve something in life. They get stuck. They're looking for somebody to up-level them, to move them forward. And I can resonate with people that are struggling from sexual abuse. I can, deal with people who are struggling from physical abuse, from violence, from gun violence, from being called stupid. I have all these experiences, and I also have tremendous success in business. And so when I marry all of my life experiences together, I can walk into any business in any industry. And I've been doing this long enough now where I can tell you the evidence stacks the same every single time. The business grows, the company grows, the tenure grows inside the business, the joy and the fulfillment of the leaders, of the people, the companies explode, because what we're doing is we're going in and we're addressing all of these little things, and almost all of them have been experiences from my life. So without those experiences, I wouldn't have been qualified to do what I'm doing today. And so if we turn this back on your audience, what are you experiencing? What has been going on in your life? And how is that preparing you for what that thing is that's calling you in your heart that you either admit to or you won't admit out aloud that you've always wanted to do? That could be a dream to want to sing but not have a voice. That could be to want to write music but be embarrassed nobody would like it. Or that could be to write a book or a play or whatever those things are. We get to bring them out. So first you have to ask yourself, what are all the things that you've experienced that are qualifying you? And then what is that thing that really lights you up, the thing that you thoroughly enjoy doing? What's interesting though, Nick, most of the people that come to me are high level, executives or people that are entrepreneurs, and they want to make money. And they come to me and they say, man, I need you to up level me. I need you to up level my life. I need you to up level my business. And then we go in, and what's interesting is most of them tell me that they're unhappy. They're unhappy in their life. They're unhappy in their marriage. They're unhappy with their family, whatever the situation is. And yet they have success. They have the business. They have all these things. And when I say to them, what do you think is going to make you happy? They all tell me, well, I need to go and do something else, something that's going to make me happy. And the Empowered Life podcast was birthed from that idea that most people think they need to go somewhere else to get the joy and the fulfillment and the happiness. But what we really need to do is look inward at who we are. And I would tell you less than, 5-10% of the people that I work with actually leave their businesses, sell them, or move on from their relationship. And everything in their lives flourish because they started looking at themselves first and then fixing some of those things that were holding them back and then applying that to their life. And so when they do that, the business naturally starts to flow, and then the organization starts to benefit because the leader changes how they show up. And then you bring that into work, and then everyone gets that same experience, and there are profound shifts or changes. Your question was very specific, and I want to make sure that we're answering the question because you asked me, how do you identify a goal? And then what is the right allotment of time for each and every one of those goals? And the answer to it is it depends on how big the goal is and what is the belief system that you've built around that goal system. I have a program that is a 4-month program where I take people through. It's an elevated leadership program. And when I say leadership, I mean it's self-leadership, whether you're an individual, just doing your own thing, or whether you're a solopreneur or you have a business, or whether it's a company. We take a group of people through this elevated program, teaching them how to lead themselves, take accountability for their life, bring awareness to who they are and why they're there. We then get them to create a vision for what their life looks like, where they want to go. And then we actually tie a goal that they get to manage, and they get 60 days to achieve that. I've had people come into my program who have wanted to write a screenplay their entire lives, CEO of a company. And at the end of 60 days, they had written 2 screenplays, sold one, and written a children's book in 60 days. And yet for 20 something years of their life, they could never write anything, but they had that dream and that desire. The magic is their business also produced greater results because they started changing how they showed up at work, right? Just a silly example. I have worked with somebody who was almost 40 years old. She'd never driven before. She had a death fear grip take over her the minute she got in behind the wheel of a car. She owns a car, pays the insurance, car sits in a garage, never drives it. She's in Europe and she just couldn't drive. And within 60 days, she actually graduates my program on Friday. And she literally has been driving cross country across Europe. And she just sent to this entire group proof, like evidence of her on a GoPro of her driving all over Europe and staying in bed and breakfast. And we're talking about massive changes. Had I asked her at the beginning of this program, would it be possible for you to get into a car in 60 days time and drive across Europe? The answer would have been hell no. Had I gone to that business leader, the CEO, and said to him, hey man, at the end of 60 days, you're going to write not one, you're going to write 2 screenplays, you're going to sell one, and you're going to have a children's book, he would have been like, there's no way. So it's not about the allotment of time. It's the intensity of what we want to do and what we want to create. What I want your listeners to really think about is no one has time to journal. No one has time to sit down and write their feelings out on a piece of paper. And for most people, especially for high performers and driven individuals, we think that that's an unnecessary act. Oh, we don't need to focus on our feelings. We just need to do, hustle, hustle, hustle. And I'm here to tell you, man, I have achieved some unbelievable things in my life. I have clients that have achieved unbelievable things. I've taken companies from a few 100 million into the billions. I've taken companies from, 6, 8 figures, growing them into 9-figure companies. And all of this wasn't touching product. It was touching how they show up, how they feel, how their teams feel, how we can align, how we can all focus on one goal, one vision, and then getting people to change. When you look at the most successful people in the world, and they looked and interviewed and polled all of the billionaires, right? The largest percentage of billionaires in the world all journal every single morning. How do I feel about where I am? What's going on with my life? What could I change? And that brings me back to the cornerstone of what I was sharing with you in my programs is you have to take accountability for where you are. If you're not sitting down and writing out what's working, what's not working, what could I do differently, you are not asking for more information. If you're not going to write it out, you're not taking accountability. So here's what I want people to hear. And this is going to be like a smack in the face. If you're not journaling, if you're not showing up with the intensity like you do for your business, but do it for your life, and asking these real questions, having a sit down meeting with yourself, what's working, what's not working, what am I doing? How do I feel about it? What could I do differently? Or even just asking, how do I feel about whatever is going on in my life right now? If you're not doing that, you're not taking yourself seriously and you are reacting to life. You are allowing the automatic response system, the 95% of behavior that has controlled your entire life, and you're doing that every single day. So you're not living your life. You are living a reactionary life to a formula where you didn't even have logical reason to create the formula. So if I never asked better questions, if I never looked for more important ways of doing things, accessing more information, doing the work, doing the journaling, spending time with myself, and then elevating what I believe I'm worthy of having, and then expecting other people around me to elevate how they communicate with me, how they show up for me, I would still be the kid who thinks he's stupid. I would still be unhappy. I would probably be sick. I wouldn't be healthy. And so we've got to take that shift and we've got to take that accountability. So I want to answer your final point in that question. If you were to decide that you wanted to do something in life and you were to come up with that vision or find someone like me to create that vision for you, with you, and then you would assign a timeline for it. When you get someone like you, Nick, the reason you're so successful, and I love what you're doing, man, and I love your 10-week program that you use to change and transform people's lives. I'm going to tell you why I love it so much. When somebody can do a 10-week program and change their health, take accountability for their health, they're taking stock of who they are, how they show up, how they feel, and then you giving them 100% success rate at the end of that in looking different, visual evidence that something changes, that when you take action, when you apply intensity and work and focus onto something, you can transform your health and your life. There isn't a person on the planet that cannot take 10 weeks to transform their life. But here's the beauty that comes out of that. People think they're signing up for you because they want to look good. They want to get beach body ready. And that's great. What I love about the work that you're doing and why I'm an advocate for what you do and why everyone should sign up for what you're doing is because you're showing people, demonstrating what does it look like to take committed action every single day in a single direction. And that when you take committed action, you get to see the changes and the transformation, because in nothing else in life can you see the change as fast as you can in your body. And then you're also showing people what does it look like in 10 weeks to commit to somebody and to get someone to hold you accountable. Here's a statistic that's going to be so incredible. When you get somebody to hold you accountable to a goal, you are 90% more likely to achieve that goal by getting somebody to hold you accountable to it. And by Nick, you saying, I'm going to support you through a 10-week program, and you get people to check in, to show up, to share results, to measure and stack themselves where they are with everyone else that's within your program. And it creates that drive. 90% to 95% of those people will hit that goal. Can we just stop for a second? If somebody signed up for a program that said, do my 10-week program and I will make you $1 million in 10 weeks, how many people would be standing in line to do that? Right?
Yeah.
If they were 95% likely to achieve it because somebody like you was holding them accountable to it. And so that's what I love, man, because we're giving people a skill that is not just translatable in health. If they took what you're teaching and they could apply to every area of their lives would transform overnight.
I love it. I love it. There was so many great things there, but yeah, just to piggyback off the end of it, whether it's your 4-month program or the 10-week, transformation. It's like having committed action in a committed direction and staying focused on that is just such a powerful thing. And like you said, it's applicable to whatever area of your life, whether it's business, whether it's fitness, whether it's personal, whether it's relational, like it's applicable to all different areas. But I think a perfect second to last question here, because you talked about the importance of journaling and taking stock of where you currently are and the importance of that habit. I think a lot of us have heard journaling and such as being such an important habit, but let's get even like more practical with journaling. What are some questions that we need to be asking ourselves on a daily basis, or what are some things that we should be doing in order to make that journaling habit productive and effective and worthwhile?
I have a program that I sell, and Nick, you can vouch for me because we didn't talk about this before we hit record today. Yeah. If your audience sends me an email and says that they heard about me through your platform, I'm going to give them a free program, 8 videos, 15 minutes of video. It comes with a journal. It gives you every question, gives you space to write out the answers. It comes with meditations. It is one of my most successful programs that I take into people's businesses. And here's the thing. It's so simple. It just takes time. Most people do not create the time. And I really want to hammer this point home, because I can give you the answers right now, save you from having to go and download a course and listen to the videos, but you really need to want it. And I want people to ask themselves this question first. And the answer to this question is going to dictate whether or not they want to take action, whether that's signing up for your 10-week program, whether that's clicking a link to get a free course from me. I have no gain in this, but I want to serve. And so the question is, right, are you right now living your highest and greatest potential? Because if you're not, why aren't you? My next question is, are you happy? Are you deeply fulfilled? When you go to bed at night, do you have a smile on your face that says, man, I have lived the greatest expression of my life today? I have plans, great plans, man. I want to live to 103. I joke about it all the time. I picked this number, but I want to live to 103 and I got a long way to go. And I want to live a lot of life. But every single night when I go to bed 100% content that if that was my last day, man, I lived it. I have lived the greatest life. I say it to my wife. I say it to my kids. I am the most fulfilled person. I am the most abundant, joyful, and happy person that I've ever met, happiest person I've ever met, because I understand the value of happiness. I understand the happiness, that factor that comes through true joy and through true fulfillment. And when I say abundance, I mean abundance in quality, man. I no longer look at money and assets as something that gives me value. Those things don't mean anything to me. They come to me because I'm abundant and joyful and I'm living the greatest expression of my life, but they're not my driving force behind what it is that I have and what it is that I do. But if you don't ask that question, then it's not going to give you the information or the evidence, right, of where you are and what's necessary to change. And so if you've asked yourself that question, am I living the greatest expression of my life? And you're like, no, man, I'm miserable. Like I'm overweight, or I'm in a bad relationship, or I've got a crappy job. I hate my job, or I hate my company, or I hate my life, or whatever that situation is. That's just information. And we can change what the brain's focusing on, which is going to change how you feel about it. The formula to life is a thought produces a feeling. Thoughts and feelings drive all human behavior. We just have to change one of those and your entire life's going to change. And so by asking the question, am I happy? And you say, well, I'm not. Great. That's just information. Why are you not happy? Well, I'm overweight. Great. Well, there's a 10-week program that's going to change that. Okay. Well, my marriage is shit. Great. There's a 4-month leadership program that's going to teach you how to hold people to a different level of accountability, change the way you communicate. You'll be a greater self-leader, greater leader of people, and your relationships will change. Great. Or you could turn around and say, I'm unhappy because I'm in this life or I'm doing these things. Then you get to ask the next question. What do I really want to do? What do I enjoy doing? And you know what's so fascinating is most people, when you ask that question, they don't know the answer to the question. And they sit there and they say, man, I don't know what makes me happy. And I say, that's just information. You've been so unhappy for so long, focusing on the wrong things. Now I want you to bring that question to the front of your mind. And all day long, ask yourself, does this bring me joy? Does this make me happy? Let me tell you, Nick, I love being interviewed. I love being interviewed. I know people that hate it. I love the process of serving. I love connecting with people. When I go to bed tonight, I'm going to be thinking of you, your audience. I'm going to be sitting back and being like, man, what a great conversation. And I'm not counting what comes from this conversation. I'm just giving and giving, selflessly giving and thinking, wouldn't this just be an amazing way to live my life? Because if this was the last day I was going to live, wouldn't that be a great way to end it? And if I can do that and it brings me joy, then I've lived the greatest expression of who I am. And I had to first ask that question, which allowed me to then start to serve, which allowed me to start to give. I just gave your entire audience one of my top selling programs. And I said, here it is for free. And I'm not stressed about the money. I'm not stressed about, oh no, I could have sold. No, I'm like, yeah, I'm here to serve. Well, great. You gave me an opportunity to serve. And that's where the joy and the fulfillment comes from. And so when people start asking those questions, they can then ask for themselves, what is it that makes me happy? And start taking notes of that. What is the quality of the life that I could look like? And when we do that, we get to change it. We have a few minutes left. And so I want to give you another example of what does that look like. Let's pretend right now you're in a relationship and you're married, or you're in a long-term relationship dating someone and you don't like how they talk to you. Well, you're not thinking about how they talk to you. You just don't like something, right? And then if you start bringing awareness to it, okay, why am I not happy in the relationship? And then when you get to the dishes in the morning and they make a snide comment about the dishes and it pisses you off, great, that's information. You can turn around and say, why does that make me feel that way? Where did that feeling come from? Oh, my mom used to talk to me that way. She's reminding me, or he's reminding me of how my mom spoke to me. It makes me feel insecure. It makes me feel unworthy, makes me feel unlovable. What is my automatic response each time? Oh, I go quiet. I shut down. That's the brain going into stress, panic, fight or flight, and you hide or you run or you get argumentative. And so you're a fighter. Whatever your default is, oh, this is how I react. Now you're asking questions. So by asking questions, you're keeping brain coherence. So in that moment, you could say, man, I always get quiet and then I ignore her. What if I said to her, hey, babe, I really don't like the way you said that. I know that's not what you meant. You just wanted the dishes done and you're frustrated, and you're probably frustrated because I haven't done them and you're justified in it. But could I ask you in the future to not speak to me that way, because it reminds me of how my mother spoke to me and it immediately makes me defensive and it makes me shut down. And then I don't want to talk to you in any capacity. And then I carry that and then it drives into resentment. But I want to change that today. So if I could ask you, instead of getting angry and upset and making a snide comment, if maybe you could just lovingly touch me on the shoulder and say, hey, babe, I could really use your support in this area. I won't be triggered. You're going to get the result that you want, and I'm not going to shut down and run away and not want to be here. Now imagine you have that conversation with your spouse. What does that look like over an extended period of time? What does that look like if those conversations come into the boardroom or into your business or with your clients? And that's when your lives start to shift and change. But at some point, you've got to have that initial dialogue with you. Like, how do I react? Why do I feel that way? What could I do differently? I hope that serves.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. Two things really quickly that I want to acknowledge from that is, like, you talked about the questions that you ask yourselves when you're journaling, and then you acknowledged how the answers that you receive from those questions, they're just information. Like, they're just information that you can take and evaluate and act upon. And then the other thing was the example when you're talking with your spouse about the dishwasher is, like, recognize the thought or the feeling that pops up, and then just realize that that's information. And that's when we have, like, self-mastery over our thoughts and our feelings, is when we don't allow the initial thought or the initial feeling to trigger a reaction or trigger an action that doesn't serve us, that isn't the highest expression of ourselves. And so if we can ensure that we just take it in as information and process that and act in a way that is a higher expression of ourselves, then that is like self-mastery over your thoughts and your feelings. And I can't wait for people to sign up and go get the free program with those 8 videos. I'll make sure it's in the show notes and everything as well. So y'all make sure that you go message him and get that free course. But before, just real quickly, I'll ask the last question in just a second, but I just want to acknowledge you, Rudi, for showing up to serve. And I want to acknowledge the 6-year-old version of yourself who just was spoken unbelievable words to that should never really be spoken to anybody, let alone a 6-year-old. But for you taking ownership over rewriting the narrative and the story of your life and helping so many others do the same. Rudi Riekstins is constantly on the path to get closer to the best version of himself. What are 3 things that you could currently do or currently work on to get closer to the best version of Rudi Riekstins that you could possibly be?
You're ending the podcast episode beautifully, because the course that I'm offering to you and your audience is the 3 things that you've just asked. So I wake up every single morning without an alarm clock, and it's usually 4 a.m., sometimes 4:35 a.m. I'm not telling you need to wake up really early. I'm just saying whatever you do in the first 20 minutes of your day dictates how you're going to feel the rest of your day. I shared with you, your thoughts produce feelings. Thoughts and feelings drive all human behavior. If you have a goal and you haven't achieved it, it's because you're thinking or feeling something against that. And so how you do anything in the first 20 minutes, you're actually creating the brain pattern of how you're going to feel the whole day. So if you wake up on a random Wednesday morning and you grab your cell phone, and in the first 20 minutes, usually the first 30 seconds of opening your eyeballs, you grab your phone and then it's Instagram, email, messages, and you start reading something. And the minute you read that, the brain is looking for familiar information and feelings as to how you felt yesterday. And if anything in that messaging or on social media or in the news or whatever it is that you're being stimulated in the first 20 minutes, it's actually making you feel that emotion. So you could be upset, you could be frustrated, you could be worried, you could be disappointed, whatever it is, you're not going to feel that way all day. And that's going to drive how you show up. So let's pretend Nick calls you and says, hey man, I'd love to get you on my podcast. If you woke up in the morning and you read something that made you feel insecure, your automatic default's going to be to say, oh yeah, probably, yeah, I'll get back to you. And you're going to self-sabotage because your brain's saying, mayday, mayday, mayday. You could be on that podcast and bomb it. And man, that would be embarrassing. And so that could be painful. So we shouldn't do it. But if you wake up in the morning early before anybody else with no outside stimulation, and you do a few key things, really deep breathing, oxygenates the brain, oxygenates the blood. I drink a ton of water. The first thing I do is down 18 ounces of water because we need to hydrate. The brain itself needs to function. Obviously, it's mostly water, but we actually dehydrate at night. And so to be able to think logically, rationally, with reason, we need water. And so we need water and we need oxygen. So those are the first two things, and I count that as number one. So I breathe and I drink water. Then I go somewhere and I sit down and I will meditate. Now, meditation is a trigger word for some people. Meditation is literally just observing your mind. That's the translation of the word. So I'll sit down in my office, same place every single day in my home, and I'll finish my deep breathing. I will then just sit there and I will allow my mind to calm down. And when I calm, I find myself getting really still. I release any thought that comes to me that says, oh, don't forget you've got the podcast today. And I say, thank you for reminding me. I'll let you go. And I just let each thought go until I'm calm. And by each thought coming in, that's where people get frustrated. But that's the gold, because that's what's happening in your mind on repeat. We have between 30,000, 50,000 thoughts a day. And that's just telling me what's going on in my head. And when I see the pattern and I say, okay, got it, and I let it go, I then become calm and still. That's the second thing. The third thing I do is I fantasize. Every single person listening to this has had a sexual fantasy, so you know the process. But why are we not doing that about our lives? So I hold a vision with intense emotion, that's a fantasy, about my life. So this morning I sat on a couch and I visualized this conversation. I visualized the conversations with my clients I had before this. I visualized the conversations I'm having after this. I've got a group program right directly after this call today where I'm taking an entire team up from a company through the same process. And I imagine how each and every single person is going to feel when I'm finished serving. And so I hold that feeling, and that guides how I show up before I get on the call. If I've already in my mind experienced the feeling of having a successful outcome, right? I've chemically altered my body to match with that vibration. Now, when I show up, my brain's not nervous or anxious. Can he do it? What's it going to be like? The body already knows because it's already achieved it. The body doesn't know the difference between past, present, future, or imagination. It just understands what's coming to it chemically. The brain cannot tell the difference between past, present, future. It's only focusing on the instruction. And so in that moment, when you're telling your brain, man, you just, stood in front of 10,000 people on stage and crushed it, and you walk off stage and that was all in your head and you felt it in your body experienced that. So now your body and your brain created a roadmap to what that looks like and feels like. And then I take that emotion and I hold that emotion for a second. So that would be joy, exuberance, fulfillment, whatever it is. And then I carry that through the rest of my day. Now, when I move forward in the rest of my day, my body and brain have already achieved the highest levels of success. And so I'm just prepared to crush it. I told you before we hit record today, Nick, I have a terrible cold. My head is pounding. I'm struggling to formulate a single thought. I'm blowing my nose and coughing in between questions. Man, I'm a hot mess. But I focused on delivering the best that I could this morning. And then when I showed up, I wasn't worried about the cold. I wasn't worried about the head. I wasn't worried about the nose. Man, I just wanted to serve, and serve. And so I chemically instructed my body that this was going to go well and that it would be successful and my next venture would be, and then the next one would be. And then I've already prepared what it's going to feel like when I lie down on my pillow tonight and imagine how amazing my day was. And so I get to then set the goal, the roadmap, achieve it, and then I get to physically follow behind it and then achieve it. And I'm going to tell you, very rarely do I not meet that expression of what I created in my mind that morning.
Wow, that's a powerful morning routine right there. Everybody, you need to write those things down. Deep breathing, drinking water, meditate, fantasize. Amazing stuff right there. Rudi, you certainly served. You certainly delivered despite not feeling good because you focused on the audience. You focused on serving. And so I really appreciate you. Y'all need to make sure you go download his course and watch these videos on creating a vision for your life. You need to make sure you go follow him at Rudi Riekstins on Instagram and go to his website and everything like that. But Rudi, absolute pleasure and honor having you on today, man. You absolutely crushed it. I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you so much. Again, you can put my email address in the show notes and the free book I would love to give everybody. And if I get any emails, I'll be sending you through that link. I dropped the link in for you. Feel free to register and take the program. I appreciate you. And I just want to acknowledge time. Time is by far our single most valuable resource. And you guys have invested time into Nick today. You've invested time into listening to me today. But more than anything, you've just invested in you and in your future. Information is invaluable, guys. Invaluable unless somehow put into practice. So it now is on you. I hope you take something that you've learned today, teach it because it'll help you retain the information and then put it into practice, man. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day. I appreciate you, brother.
Amen to that. Appreciate you too.